All right, another loaded show coming your way on Philadelphia 76ers now. But first, can we do it? Can we get to 8,000 subscribers with this video? We're 95 people away, and we launched this channel about a year ago. Great growth within this year. It's been awesome to interact with all you Sixers fans, knowing that I grew up rooting on this basketball team, and to be able to cover them, chop it up with you has been an absolute blast. So if you're looking for informative, entertaining, consistent coverage, hit that red subscribe button. And I also want to give a shout out to all of our loyal subscribers who have already subscribed to the channel. If you have, type Real One in the comment section. The Real Ones know this is our Real One roll call. And because the Real One movement has been so real here at Chat Sports, we decided, you know what? We're going to make it into some merch. We're going to make some Real One shirts, and you can get some available right now by heading to chatsports.com/Real One. Blue shirts available, black shirts available, red shirts available, and a few other colors to fit the Sixers colors. So one more time, chatsports.com/Real One. A lot of people have been hitting me up. Chase, how can I further support the show? There you go. I'll put that link in the comment section and the description of this video. As for the show today, going to do a Sixers roster outlook with the roster pretty much set going into 2022-2023 following free agency. I don't see the Sixers, nor do I envision them making another splash move to make a roster addition, whether it be through free agency or trade. So I thought it was a good opportunity to go player for player and take a look at each guy going into Sixers training camp, which will be coming your way in September. Of course, we'll be covering it here on 76ers Now. So I do want to begin in the front court here. Some questions do remain behind Joel Embiid. Embiid coming off back-to-back seasons in which he finished runner-up to the Joker in MVP voting. He's going to be your bona fide number one and once again a most valuable player candidate. Paul Reed, as of now, is slated to be his backup. Charles Bassey, we'll see what he can do. Really went back and forth, played primarily last year at the G League level. And at Western Kentucky did a couple of good things, just not sure he's ready to play consistent minutes right now. And I do not expect Michael Foster or Julian Champagnie to actually make the team, the latter of which didn't really have a good showing in the NBA Summer League. As for Embiid, it's been marvelous and a treat to watch him grow, evolve, and really just become one of the most dominant and most gifted bigs that we've ever seen. I've said this before. He has the physicality of Shaquille O'Neal, but the finesse of Hakeem Olajuwon. And then you see some of those side-by-side mimic videos of his turnaround and pull-up jab, looking very reminiscent of Kobe Bryant and Kevin Durant. Talking about a 7-1 guy who can just dominate people in the paint, but also stretch his game out to the three-point arc, sometimes even bring the ball up, put the ball on the floor. He's extremely gifted. And last year, the NBA scoring champion, 30.5 points per game, an excellent rebounder, and a great defender as well. Those shooting splits, given his size, at 50-38 really is sensational. And going back to this front court, the one big question on this roster, I'm pretty convinced that the Sixers are deep and talented everywhere else, is backup center. Is the job going into training camp going to be B-ball Paul's to lose? Paul Reed did some pretty impressive things last year in the playoffs when he was thrust into that role in an emergency situation because Doc Rivers failed to play him throughout much of the regular season. With more reps, can he slow down just a little bit because he's a little bit out of control? I'm looking forward to seeing him get more minutes as Embiid's backup if they don't make any other transactions. To the Sixers forwards now. The big free agent acquisition, of course, P.J. Tucker. Danuel House kind of flew under the radar, but for P.J. Tucker, we'll expand our thoughts on him coming up just around the corner. Tobias Harris, really solid player. Do want to share some things on him as well. Danuel House, real quick though, flown under the radar because he's a really good athlete, a guy who can knock down some threes. You watch what he can do in transition. He's pretty exciting. He can throw down some hammers and is a really good athlete. George Niang, I thought, was really good last year before that knee injury affected him a little bit. Got played off the floor a little bit against the Miami Heat because they were just way too quick and athletic for him. But throughout the regular season and in the playoffs, depending on the matchup, Niang can really give you a big who can shoot the rock from deep. And then Matisse Thybulle just has to become a more consistent three-point shooter. The defense, some of the best that you'll see from a wing in the NBA. The offense is just so lackluster. For Tucker, really like the signing. He brings you toughness. He brings you elite defense. He's played alongside James Harden. He's a good fit for that reason and more. He can camp out in the corner and knock down those three balls. And when it comes to you just needing dogs in the course of a playoff series, PJ Tucker, one of those guys who you just want. He could play next to Joel Embiid. He can play small ball 5. Don't let his lack of size fool you. He's not afraid to mix it up down low. And as for Tobias Harris, you're going to look at the points per game here and say, Toby, he's getting paid $30+ million, has to average more than 15 points per game over his final 17. No, he doesn't. This production, honestly, is fine for me. Maybe you can make the argument he can average a little bit more scoring production, but what am I looking at here? I'm looking at the rebounds, good. I'm looking at the field goal percentage, very good at 50.5%. And if Tobias Harris, this is my point, is knocking down 42% of his threes while averaging, let's say, 15 to 18 points per game, knowing that Embiid, Maxey, Harden might be the offensive options ahead of him, that right there, pretty good production for a guy who I think is actually an underrated defender. Where does this Sixers roster rank in the NBA? That's our poll question for today's show. So I want to hear from you in the comment section. 30 teams in the NBA. Rank where the Sixers are right now. Excited to hear from you. As for the Sixers' backup guards, a lot of guys who I do not expect to be steady contributors in this rotation or even making the team. Charlie Brown Jr., the St. Joe's product, played very sparingly last year. He's one of those back end of the roster types. Isaiah Joe, looking for him to make a step. I think he has a role on an NBA team because he can really stroke the 3 ball. Furkan Korkmaz, hopefully he bounces back from last year. And then Jaden Springer didn't do anything in the Summer League that impressed me. That was my concern for him. Lacked that shot. The shot wasn't there in Las Vegas. And then Trevelin Queen, one of those deals early in free agency alongside PJ Tucker and Danuel House, of course, a former Rocket and a guy who has gone through a pretty unbelievable path to reach the NBA level from D2 JUCO to climbing the ranks. For Furkan Korkmaz, the numbers last year, a little bit concerning. I thought the value deal that he originally signed 2 off seasons ago, making about $5 million per year, pretty good value for a guy who's 6'7", and because of that height, has a release point from his three-point shot that can be hard to defend. And 2 years ago, in that Hawks playoff series, he hit a couple of big shots. And throughout his career, he's shown, okay, he can be a decent three-point shooter, underrated athlete. At times, he's been asked to bring the basketball up the floor. But last year, shooting 39% from the field and not much better from 3 has to be better because that, at the end of the day, is his role. And then Jaden Springer, kind of talked about him, but the former first-round pick from the 2021 NBA draft did some okay things with the Delaware Bluecoats, but last year, NBA level, didn't have a lot of opportunities. That's why I was excited to watch him in the NBA Summer League, and he really didn't do much to impress me or move the needle there. Lastly, Sixers top guards. This is a unit that I really like, led by James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, D'Anthony Melton, and Shake Milton. Even though the Sixers brought in Melton, I still think that Milton will have a role because he can go on those hot stretches offensively, and I kind of like that herky-jerky game coming off the bench and what he can offer you. But Harden, Maxey, Melton as your top 3 guards, that is a really good rotation and a good semblance and combination of talent. And D'Anthony Melton, that acquisition is going to do wonders for the Sixers bench unit, which last year wasn't that deep, wasn't that talented. You take the starters out, and Doc Rivers was looking for somebody to step up, score the rock, but Melton cannot only just do that, he can defend at a pretty good level. And there are so many reasons to be excited about Philadelphia's son, Tyrese Maxey. The maximum growth that we saw from year 1 to year 2 just gives you so many reasons to be excited about this young player. He carries himself in a very vivacious manner. He is huge for the Sixers culture. They do benefit and feed off of his energy. He's one of the only players, or at least last year, was the only player on this team who could truly create off the dribble with explosiveness athletically, which can help bail you out once the offense gets stagnant. And the year 1 to year 2 growth was monumental, and those numbers that you're seeing on the right of your screen, even better throughout the NBA playoffs when he was averaging more than 20 points per game and still knocking down a steady dosage of threes. As for James Harden, you look at his last 4 years. Are there reasons to be concerned about the precipitous decline that we've seen in terms of scoring the basketball? Maybe. 36 points per game in 2018-19. Folks, we're not far removed from that. Following year, 34 points per game, and then last year with the Rockets and Nets, his role certainly changed where he was on a better team. But I'm going with the eye test here. he has looked like he's lost a little bit of a step the last 2 years, and that hamstring injury has continued to ail him, and because of that, he's lost a little bit of that explosiveness, and the shot isn't as consistent because he hasn't had his lower half beneath him. Is it because he's cooked? Is it because he's declining? Or is it because of the hamstring injury? We're about to find out with James Harden this upcoming year. Before I get on out of here, how many games will the 76ers win in 2022-2023? If they win anything less than 50 games, I think it's a huge disappointment. This is a team that is built to compete for an NBA championship. Show us that you're worthy of that chatter, 76ers. We're waiting for it. Eagles are expected to be a good squad. If the Sixers are good, Phillies maybe making the playoffs. Exciting times in Philadelphia. And by the way, I just realized the Philly City of Champions coffee mug right to my right as I sip this coffee to get through this Friday. I hope you get through this Friday and have a great weekend. And as always, thanks for watching the show.